Next on my list is the Russian Federation, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I understand, today the Myanmar delegation is not present during today's meeting. And yesterday, as we know from among members of the Security Council, there was a letter that was circulated as to the reason of the absence. So perhaps it would be proper and it would be fair, in order to balance out at least the selection of briefers, for you to briefly set out the content of that letter. It would be interesting for all of us to know, all of us in the audience, about the reasons for their absence. Turning to the Russian position, I would note the following. We consistently advocate the need to adopt a non-confrontational, apolitical approach to discussion of the state of affairs in Myanmar and to seek ways to achieve a comprehensive settlement to the issues of Muslim refugees from Rakhine State. What exists in Myanmar provinces of Kachin, Shan, and Arakan, the problems there are a direct consequence of the short-sighted and inhumane colonial policies of the British Empire. Today, the history was mentioned of that state. The seriousness of the intent of the Myanmar government to tackle the existing issues at the human rights realm is borne out by such initiatives as establishment of a joint committee to introduce amendments to the country's constitution, a committee to prevent egregious violations against children in armed conflict, the adoption of a national program to provide for dignified employment for 2018 to 2022. We support Myanmar's measures to establish cooperation with the OHCHR and UNDP, the conduct of comprehensive dialogue that was held with the Special Representative of the Secretary General, Madam Schraner Brucker, who visits Myanmar on a regular basis. We welcome the inclusion of ASEAN in the efforts, the aim of which is to normalize the humanitarian situation in Rakhine State, as well as to create conducive conditions for the return of displaced persons. We do not deny the importance of accountability for perpetrators of human rights violations in Rakhine State. At the same time, against the backdrop of efforts to establish repatriation for refugees, efforts undertaken by both Myanmar and by Bangladesh bilaterally, against this backdrop, we deem it to be both unjustified and counterproductive that of late there has been a disproportionate uptick in influence brought to bear on Naypyidaw on human rights. The effectively politically motivated spinning of events around these very serious problems. In this connection, we welcome the consistent efforts undertaken by Naypyidaw to investigate crimes perpetrated in Rakhine State. There's a need to allow for there to be tranquil efforts by what has been in operation since July 2018. I refer to the Independent Commission of Investigation headed up by the former Deputy Foreign Minister of the Philippines, Mr. Manalo, who is assiduously dealing with an analysis of the facts and evidence in line with universally recognized international standards. To date, the Commission has already held 10 meetings. On the 17th to the 22nd of August, its representatives visited Cox's Bazar to compile evidence from amongst the refugees. The Myanmar Armed Forces also, since March, have had a relevant investigative mechanism that has been in operation. This is a tribunal for the collection and verification of facts in Rakhine State. Principally speaking, we believe that accountability for perpetrators of crimes, that this accountability needs to be achieved by national jurisdictions above all, in line with domestic criminal legislation. There's greatly significant international channels of legal assistance on criminal affairs, which operate to that end. A standing independent mechanism for collection, publications, compilation, storage, and analysis of evidence of the gravest international crimes and human rights violations done in Myanmar since 2011. This was established by a resolution 39/2 of the Human Rights Council dating 27 September 2018. This mechanism, as we see it, cannot be regarded as an appropriate and on the whole an acceptable mechanism for the advancement of the goals of criminal justice being done. This quasi-investigative mechanism operates in a manner that is at variance with the principles of sovereign equality of states and non-intervention in their domestic affairs. And for so far as is known, Myanmar has not consented to its operations. And on the whole, the legitimacy of this mechanism gives rise to major questions. We doubt that the Human Rights Council possesses the relevant jurisdiction to establish bodies of such a kind, of such a nature. In any event, the material that has been compiled, the material compiled by such bodies cannot be viewed as evidence in the criminal procedural sense of the term, nor can be accepted by judicial and law enforcement bodies. Such material cannot serve as justification that provides for the automatic jurisdiction being granted for international courts and tribunals for being seized of a given situation. In this regard, the mechanism of the Human Rights Council on Myanmar is marred by the same flaws as the Syrian mechanism that was set up in breach of a General Assembly mandate. And to conclude, in this context, I wish to note the politicized and biased nature of the report of the International Fact-Finding Commission in Myanmar entitled The Economic Interests of the Myanmar Military. That is all for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And